Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of PPPD, Professors Providing Professional Development. Karen did post out to social networks yesterday asking for ideas for topics that we could talk about. And next week, I think we will actually do one of them. Somebody suggested talking about Banned Books Week, and that seems really appropriate since next week is Banned Books Week. So look for that next Tuesday, we hope, with lots of resources and all kinds of things to share with you about that.
And our favorite banned books.
And our favorite banned books, yeah, because Karen and I read bad books.
Right. I'll read. You're not going to tell me what I can read.
That's right. Doggone it.
We're just going to do some book talks for you today. It's just kind of one of those days, for one thing. It's hot today for some reason, or not for some reason, but I'm ready for fall.
I am too.
So,
well, that's a good segue for me then.
Okay.
You like that?
Yeah.
It is the first day of fall here in Texas, which means that it's 98 degrees outside.
Yeah.
That's why we love Texas. But here's a book that's all about fall. It's called Yellow Time, and it's by Lauren Stringer. I absolutely adore the end papers, and of course you're going to see a lot of yellow in here, because when it's that time, when everything is yellow, the trees are just magnificent, and then one day along comes a breeze and suddenly all of the yellow is in the air, and it only comes once a year, but it's absolutely magical. So you can see the end papers talk about the yellow in the trees, and then at the end you can see the yellow is all under the trees. The language is rich and powerful. The use of yellow certainly underscores what this book is all about. Great book for the first day of fall. Makes me feel a little cooler just thinking about it.
How to Be a Hero by Florence Perry Heidi.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great story because it covers a lot of things that would be helpful for students when you're talking to them about fairy tales and the journey of a hero and what it takes to be a hero. So it'd be a great way to cover that, start this with students. This boy wants to be a hero. Once upon a time, there was a nice boy, and his name was Gideon. Well, the thing is Gideon is not satisfied with his nice, normal life. He wants to be a hero. And he starts analyzing what it takes to be a hero and what you need to be a hero. For being strong and for being brave. And then he realizes that maybe it doesn't take necessarily all of those things. What I really like about the book, though, is it's not a typical ending. It's a surprise ending. It's a twist on an ending. And it's not one that students would ever be able to pick out. So it will be a delight to find out what really happens for him to be a hero.
And for those of us who know traditional literature well, which we certainly do here, there is a double-page spread where he's downtown on the city streets, and you have a store that's run by Bettelheim. You've got a store that's run by the Grimms. So you've got these wonderful references to the traditional literature and to the people who wrote a lot of traditional literature.
Yeah, Grimm's books.
Mm-hmm. So little inside jokes.
Anderson's Tea Room.
That's right. And then proprietor Bettelheim, it's a butcher shop. And that kind of works really well for me too. So How to Be a Hero talks about, finding the right identity. I'm really bad when I'm working in a mirrored concept here. This is I'm a girl. And as you can see, here's the main character on the front insisting that I'm a girl. Be yourself. There's no one better. I love that. But our main character says, I'm supposed to be all sugar and spice and everything nice, but that's not who I am. And so people constantly say, oh, what a nice little boy you are. I'm a girl, I'm a girl, I'm a girl. And it continues through the book. And really what this does is kind of skewer all those things we have about gender identity. And what are little girls made of? What are little boys made of?
And the fact that she's blue, so what?
That's right. And it's just all those kind of things. And it's done very subtly. I don't think that kids will pick that part up. But I do think that it's a great book to share with kids who are looking for the best person to be is the person you are.
We've had this one for a while, and I've talked to Terry about it several times just because this is a gorgeous book. This is Our Baby Born Today by Varsha Bajaj.
Guess is as
And
good as mine. We're sorry. We're sorry if we.
Sorry if I butcher the name.
Yeah, we really are.
So it's beautiful in art, but it's also beautiful in language. Oh my gosh, look at the end papers too. Just beautiful with the elephant in there. But it's just lyrical. This is the baby wrinkled and gray. This is the baby born today. And it just talks about the little elephant, and it's just so cute. And it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous book from start to finish, like I said, in both language and illustration.
Absolutely. Here's a book that I think kids will spend hours just poring over all the pictures. It's called The Lost House. And it's about two kids who want to go to the park with their grandfather, but he has to find all these things he's lost. And so on each double-page spread, you have Grandpa saying, yes, but I need to have my socks. Can you help me find my socks? And it's not always, I think, immediately obvious.
I had to search for a while.
Sometimes you have to search for things. But I love that what stands out on these kind of green background is Grandpa and the two kids. And then this is a bright orange background. In many ways, this helps you find things because it kind of makes things stand out. So, of course, by the time you're all done, it's kind of a cumulative story. By the time you're all done, Grandpa is ready to go, but the kids are exhausted because they've been searching for things in the lost house all day. This is when I can see kids just poring over for an hour trying to find everything they want to, like they do in the Waldo books and things like that.
Next we have an early chapter book, Rabbit and Robot
And
and Ribbit, C.C. Bell. And so this is great because Frog and Rabbit Robot and Ribbit are good friends. No, gosh.
Robot and
Rabbit are good friends, but in comes Ribbit. And Rabbit becomes a little bit jealous because his friend is being kind of pulled away, he feels like. And so Rabbit has to really kind of work through his jealousy issues. And they come to a point where they kind of have to realize they work together to fix a problem, and it's okay to have more than one best friend.
Absolutely. And I love the characters. I like how they speak. They're very individual kinds of characters. And, when Robot is in distress, it's up to Ribbit and Rabbit to fix him, to basically bring him back to life. So you've got kind of interesting situations where they have to work together.
Yeah, and they talk about jealousy. I mean, it's not like it's all that it's like hidden and it's an undertone of the story. They approach the issue directly.
I have some picture books that are nonfiction. They just kind of rose to the top of the to-be-read stack today for some reason. This is The Marvelous Thing That Came from a Spring, and it's the story of the invention of the Slinky. And I had a Slinky when I was little. I didn't particularly find them as fascinating as other people did.
Well, I didn't have stairs in my house.
Well, maybe that's part of it, too.
Yeah, so it wasn't all that much fun for me. I had to build everything to make it walk.
But it talks about the inventor who was an engineer who was looking for something to help stabilize supplies during shipments at sea. And he knew it had to be some kind of spring that would, like in your car, like the struts and suspension. And so he had this spring that wasn't really good for his application, but he had it up on a stack and it started walking down. And he knew he had a great idea for an invention. Nobody would buy the Slinky at first. So he and his wife borrowed money, made several hundred of them, I want to say 500 or so of them, and then took them to Gimbel's and actually hand sold them right before Christmas. And then, of course, it all took off. But he and his wife maintained control of the company for years. And then after he left to do missionary work, she took over the business and ran it for a long time. So it's a wonderful story about invention and about working together and how something that doesn't do what I need it to do right now might actually be something I could use for something else later on. So this is Gilbert Ford, The Marvelous Thing, that Came from a Spring.
A Fire Truck Named Red by Randall DeSeve. Okay, so look at the cover of the book. This is a book that's illustrated by Bob Stacky. But when I saw that, I was like, whoa, I need to take a look at that again. Because the cover doesn't make me think Bob Stacky. But as soon as you get in there and see, there you can see his style.
Yeah.
But that fire truck, this old fire truck, is worked in to this story because it's very important to the story. Because this young boy wants this brand new, shiny, cool fire truck that does all this fancy, cool stuff. But instead, he gets an old one that his grandpa gives him. Well, the thing is, he's really disappointed at first. But then his grandpa starts telling him about all the adventures he had with that fire truck when he was a boy. And he's telling him these stories while they're fixing up Red. And in the end, he realizes that just because it's old doesn't mean it can't have great adventures. And on top of that, he realizes how much he enjoys spending time with Grandpa.
I like that. Just because you're old doesn't mean
right.
you're no good anymore.
That's right.
The older I get, the more I like that. Taking just a really short break now from picture books. This is one for older readers. It's called Into White, and I want to thank Terry Young for making sure that I got an advanced reader copy of this book. This is a debut novelist. Her name is Randy Pink, excuse me. Into White is the book. Her name is Randy Pink. And it's about a girl who's living in Montgomery, Alabama, one of the few black students in a pretty much white school. And she wants more than anything else to be any race other than what she is. And she prays to Jesus. She says, please let me wake up. Please let me be any race but white. I know that you say you can do anything. So if you love me, and I think you do because I've always been faithful, then you'll make me white. So you open to the next chapter after she's uttered this prayer. I woke up the next morning as white as a Bing Crosby Christmas. And now she's white. And how does that change her life? Does it make it better? Does it make it much more complicated? Because nobody else changes, just she. So her brother is still black. Her parents are still black. She's still going to the same school. Will she be treated differently? Toya learns an awful lot about race, and so will readers. This has already gotten some wonderful reviews, and it's certainly, I think, one of those topics that can generate a great deal of discussion if done with, some adult supervision there, if done in the right way. So, Into White by Randy Pink.
And I will go to middle grade. I wanted to show yellow. Okay, there, see, now you can see it's yellow. Ghost by Jason Reynolds, and I listened to it on audio. The audio was very good. It had multiple narrators, and it's the first in the series of 4 books that Jason Reynolds is going to write about this group of kids that run in on a track team. So it's not like a school track team, but it's like an after-school track team. And this particular boy is poor-ish. I mean, his mother makes sure he has everything he needs, but he doesn't have everything that he feels like he wants. And there's one particular thing that leads him to some trouble. He never really thinks to join this track team, but he stumbles upon their practice one day and decides to, kind of try and show off, and ends up being offered, to be a member of this team. He has to get approval from Mom, though. The coach goes and tries this, or tries to talk her into it, and she agrees, as long as he keeps up his schooling. So being a member of this track team really changes this boy's life for a lot of reasons. Friendship, I would say pride in something that he's doing. He always has felt like he's been a good runner. And that kind of comes back several times in a big situation that he's living in his life, dealing with his parents. But now it's leading to something good. And then he also has a wonderful support system, of course, in his mother, but also in another male figure of the coach, who is a former Olympic medalist. And this man is very influential in these kids' lives, and especially important to Ghost. Well, that's his name. They call him Ghost. I'm terrible with characters' names, and we've talked about that before. But and what I love about Ghost, though, is he goes, nobody really calls me that. He kind of just gives himself the nickname.
Right.
I love that. It cracked me up. It's like, yeah, I'm Ghost. And
Yeah,
so
just
he
call
just,
me Ghost.
call me Ghost.
Yeah, because his name is Castle, I want to say.
Oh, yes. It's an interesting name.
And
Yeah.
This is one of the 10
Yep.
books on the long,
Long
list
list
for
for
the
National
National Book
Book
Award. We are slowly making our way through. I think I'm at 8. I have 2 more left to go. So we'll
Yeah.
probably be talking about those in the coming weeks, although some of them we read last year
Right,
when they were
right.
early out, like Rainy Nightingale
Right.
and a few of the other books.
We're
But
both
it
going to
is-
be working on, I think, Burn Baby Burn.
Burn
coming
Baby
up
Burn
next.
is coming up next. Absolutely.
So, but yeah, so Ghost, and I'm interested in seeing the other characters because
Right.
they're all have very different experiences, but Jason Reynolds does a good job of, even though Ghost is our main character, he paints those other characters interesting enough to where I really, really want to know
Right.
about them, which is smart, seeing as there's going to be a book about each one of them.
And I
so.
loved how you get the backstory. Coach takes them out on Friday night, all the new people.
Newbies.
Those are the 4, the quartet. And he says, before you can have your Chinese dinner, and they're allowed to order anything they want, and Ghost has ordered Peking duck. He's never had it, but he's sure it's going to be wonderful because it's the most expensive item on the menu. But before they are given their silverware or their chopsticks, Coach makes them each tell something about themselves that no one else knows. And so we get some insight into these 4 and why perhaps they're going to form a little kernel within the group. So I love that.
Yeah.
I think that works so well. Back to nonfiction for me, because once I got one, I just kept going. This is Animals by the Numbers by, and my fingers are covering, Steve Jenkins. This is a book of infographics about animals and insects and plants. And it's, the traditional kind of things like what are the largest animals, what are the smallest animals, but look at how they're done. They're all done as an infographic. I want to show you the infographic that just grossed me out the most. I actually tweeted or put it out on Facebook. This is the relationship of the number of humans to the number of insects in the world. There are 15 tons, 15 tons of insect for every living human on the planet. I am now just itchy all over. But I love the infographics and how they really kind of bring things to life. They talk about the loudest to the quietest animal, and the loudest is actually a shrimp whose voice, for lack of anything better to call it, can actually kill small fish. Ooh. And you don't think about shrimp having like vocal cords where they can make lots of noise. So you get wonderful infographics. I know that science teachers will love this, but I think any teacher who wants kids to learn how to share information is going to love all the different kinds of infographics you see here. It makes it fascinating. I could not turn pages quickly because I had to know who has the largest, smallest, everything else. So, Animals by the Numbers.
Little Mouse's Big Book of Beasts by Emily Ravitz. So unique. The inside is just done in such a way that there are a lot of lifts and flaps, but also interesting things like ripped pages and holes in pages. And like, look at this one right here. It's like a newspaper is swatting a wasp over here, that kind of thing. So librarians, be aware, because there are going to be things that can tear. But what this is Little Mouse is reading along in this book on about beasts. And he kind of takes liberties to make them not so scary. So like he's closing his jaws, putting mittens on his claws, so he can't roar and he can't scratch, and he's tearing away the roar, so he's carrying it off. See, so he does that to every one of these scary pages. Like here's origami, and it was for a shark. Well, changes it to origamice and takes off the instructions for the shark part and ends it to where it still just looks like a mouse. So just Little Mouse takes liberties with Emily's work.
Absolutely.
And makes it his own.
My final nonfiction picture book is a biography of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's called I Dissent. Ruth Bader Ginsburg Makes Her Mark. And it takes her from her childhood, where girls were basically educated only so that they could become housewives, mothers, those kinds of things. And boys were sent off for higher education. Thankfully, her mom saw to it that she got a good education. She was one of only 5 in her law school when she went. There were hundreds of men, 5 women. She had a hard time getting a job for a long time because back then, women didn't get positions as professors in law schools and things like that. So it shows her from her early moments as a child growing up, and on almost every page it'll say, I dissent or I persist, which is pretty much, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she resisted and persisted.
So you've got some big type, which I really like, that goes along with the little type. And then toward the end, it talks about some of the landmark cases where she dissented. And finally, at the end, as all good nonfiction books will do, more about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's a wonderful book. It even talks about her friendship with Antonin Scalia. It talks all the way up to contemporary times. She's the oldest. There are many who think that she should step down, but guess what? She dissents. She does not agree. I absolutely enjoyed reading this kind of slice of life biography about Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
The last one we're going to cover, Snow White, graphic novel by Matt Phelan. We really enjoyed this. This is Snow White told during the 1920s stock market crash time. And it, just is powerful. Mm-hmm. Of course, it follows the story of Snow White, a young girl. Mother dies. Father marries a new woman. She gets sent off to school because the mother doesn't like her around. Mm-hmm. Really only likes the father for the money that he provides. But then Dad dies, and Snow White is left, left everything. The dad leaves her most of everything, and the wife freaks out and sends somebody to kill her. She is saved by
the Seven.
Just
the Seven. I love it.
Just the Seven, and they are a group of young kid hoodlums on the street, making their own way, surviving, and they are the ones that rescue her. But then she falls into a deep sleep, and she is awakened by a kiss, and they all live happily ever after. Absolutely. In the end. But the setting is interesting. Mm-hmm. how he works Snow White in to this 1920s stock market crash setting.
Vivian French did a picture book called Snow White in New York. It's probably 30 years old now. But back when we were doing face-to-face with children's literature, we would bring in lots of different variations. And Snow White in New York was set basically during the Jazz Age. And she's poisoned by a cherry that's put in her cocktail because she becomes a famous jazz singer. I mean, there are so many ways to tell a story. And Phelan's storytelling here is phenomenal because I bet there aren't more than maybe a couple hundred words in the book. I know I picked it up one day thinking, I have to sit and wait for the doctor. And well before the doctor was ready for me, I had read the book and I had read it again. So it's a quick read, but then you want to go back and you want to look at the illustrations.
But you're right, there are so much. I didn't even realize how much little text there were because the illustrations
Absolutely.
are so phenomenal.
Absolutely.
So many of them, of the pages are textless. Mm-hmm. You need to get it.
And we probably should, since Karen had it sitting out, we'll both talk about this. This is Duck, Duck, Porcupine. And I love that because I'm thinking Duck, Duck, Goose, but now it's Duck, Duck, Porcupine. And it introduces us to Big Duck, Little Duck, and Porcupine. I love that Porcupine is purple. And there are 3 stories in this book. It's an early chapter book for kids. So we get things like table of contents and page numbers and things like that.
So there's the perfect day for a picnic. There's a second one where they, what is the second one? Forgetful. They forget. Big Duck's trying to remember something, and Little Duck's giving him hints all along, but then he finally remembers. And the last one is preparing for a camping trip. And so it's, there's not a huge, hard lesson in these stories, but yet there's a little one. Like in the camping trip, Porcupine and Big Duck spend all day long preparing and packing for their camping trip. They have 100 things on their list. And by the time they get it all, they can't even carry their stuff to the campground. and they've lost the day. But when they see light across on the other side of the tree, they find out that little duck has already started camping, because all he did was set up a fire and bring the one thing you really need, marshmallows. So it's like the simple, you don't always have to plan so much. You can do it simply and still and have a great time.
And you've got the wonderful archetype of little duck who is always the one that has the right answer.
That's right.
No matter what.
Yes.
And I adore that. This is Selena Yoon, who did Be a Friend last year, which I absolutely just loved. So bright, colorful illustrations, very easy to read. You can see not a lot of text on the page. So easy reader kinds of things. Duck, duck, porcupine. That's it for this episode of PPPD.
And I will put the links to the books and titles in the description of the video, so you can click and go look at the descriptions on Goodreads.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.